Buckle up, everybody, because today we're taking a deep dive into The Burrow, the third chapter of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Yes, and it might just seem like a fun little chapter, but there's actually so much we can learn from it.
Oh, definitely. I've always loved this chapter, but I'm ready to see it with new eyes. What are some of the things we can explore?
Well, we see themes of family and friendship, social dynamics,
Right.
and even these little hints of prejudice and rebellion.
That's true. I never really thought about it like that.
It's all there, and, J.K. Rowling just presents it in such an engaging way.
For sure. I mean, that's why we all love Harry Potter. So how about we start at the beginning? Ron, Fred, and George showing up in that flying car to rescue Harry from the Dursleys.
Yeah.
What a scene.
Talk about a dramatic entrance,
Yeah.
right? But it's not just about the spectacle. It also tells us a lot about the Weasleys and their relationship with rules.
Oh, absolutely.
Remember what Ron says? We're only borrowing this. It's Dad's. We didn't enchant it.
Yeah.
They have their own way of looking at things, like loyalty and compassion are more important than blindly following the rules.
That's such a good point. And that makes me think about the contrast between Crivet Drive and the Burrow itself. The Dursleys' house is so well...
Sterile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the Burrow is just this explosion of life and warmth.
Exactly. It's like two completely different worlds. Privet Drive is all about appearances and fitting in.
Right.
But the Burrow is all about family and being yourself.
I bet we could have some really interesting discussions with students about those two settings.
Definitely. It really makes you think about the kinds of environments that help kids thrive,
Totally. And speaking of kids thriving, we meet the whole Weasley family in this chapter. Each one is so unique.
Yeah, it's like a master class in character development.
Yeah.
Molly, Arthur, all the kids, each one has their own personality.
It makes you wonder which one you'd be friends with.
I know, right?
Do you think you'd be a Fred and George kind of person?
Huh. Maybe. I do love a good prank. But part of me admires Percy's ambition, too.
Oh, for sure. He's got big goals.
And Ginny, she's so shy, but you can tell there's something special about her.
Absolutely. Oh, and how could we forget about the denoming scene?
Oh, that's classic.
Pure comedy.
I know, right? But it also shows us a lot about Mr. Weasley. He's fascinated by muggles, and he's not afraid to bend the rules a little.
It's true. And maybe that's a little foreshadowing.
Oh, you're on to something there. That disregard for authority might come back later on.
Very interesting. So are you saying even the silly parts of the chapter have deeper meaning?
Exactly. It's all about looking beyond the surface, asking questions like, why is Mr. Weasley so easy on those gnomes? What does that tell us about his values?
That's brilliant. We should encourage our students to think like that.
Absolutely. To be active readers, not just passive ones.
So what do you say we take a closer look at those rule breakers, Fred and George?
Oh yeah, the dynamic duo. They're all about pushing boundaries and questioning authority.
I can't help but love them.
I know, they're so much fun. But there's also a deeper message there. They're not just being mischievous for the sake of it.
You're right. It's more than that.
They have the strong moral compass. They care about what's right.
Like when they stand up to Malfoy.
Exactly. And that's a valuable lesson for all of us, right? To not be afraid to challenge the status quo when we see something wrong.
Totally. All right, before we move on, I have to ask about Gilderoy Lockhart.
Oh, yes.
And Mrs. Weasley's obvious crush.
Ha ha ha. It's pretty funny, but it also says something about celebrity culture, even in the wizarding world.
That's true. Lockhart is all about appearances.
Right. He's more focused on fame than actually being a good wizard.
And Mrs. Weasley, even though she's so practical, falls for it.
It shows how easy it is to be swayed by a charming exterior, even when there's not much substance underneath.
It's a good lesson for our students, too, to be critical thinkers and not just follow the crowd.
Absolutely. Don't just believe something because it's popular or because someone famous says it's true.
All right. I am already seeing this chapter in a whole new light.
I told you. There's so much to uncover.
I can't wait to see what else we discover. This is shaping up to be an incredible deep dive.
Me too. So, welcome back to our exploration of the Burrow. Now, we were talking about the setting and how it's more than just a backdrop for the story.
Right. It's like you can feel the difference when Harry goes from Privet Drive to the Burrow.
Exactly. It's a completely different energy.
So how can we help our students see that the Burrow is such an important setting?
Well, one way is to think about it as a haven for Harry.
Oh, I like that.
It might be messy and chaotic, but it's full of love and acceptance.
Totally. It's like a safe space.
Exactly. And that's a big contrast to Privet Drive, where everything is about appearances and fitting in.
Right. And we can talk with students about how different families create a sense of home.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to look a certain way.
And, the burrow itself is so interesting. What are some of the details we should focus on?
Well, the house itself, for one,
Mm.
it's like this crazy, wonky structure that seems to defy gravity.
It's true. It's like it's built on magic.
And that tells us something about the Weasleys. They're resourceful.
Yeah.
They make do with what they have, and they create something beautiful out of it.
It's a good lessons for all of us, right?
Definitely like valuing creativity and resourcefulness over just having a lot of stuff.
And it makes me think about sustainability.
Oh, that's a great connection.
Yeah.
Reusing things, making them last. That's very Weasley.
And then there are all the magical details, the self-washing dishes, the clock that tells you where everyone is.
Right. It's like this perfect blend of the ordinary and the extraordinary.
Yeah.
It really sparks your imagination.
Makes you think anything is possible.
And later in the series, the burrow becomes even more important.
It does.
It becomes a hiding place for the Order of the Phoenix.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
So it transforms into this symbol of hope and resistance.
That's such a powerful idea.
Mm.
A home can be so much more than just a building.
Right. It can represent your values, your beliefs, your fight against darkness.
And speaking of darkness, we get these glimpses of other houses in the chapter, like the Malfoys' manor.
Oh, yeah. Very different vibe there.
It's all about wealth and secrecy, right? The opposite of the burrow.
Exactly. It shows us the other side of the wizarding world, where power and tradition are everything.
And it makes you think about the different values that people have.
Right. The Weasleys might not have much money, but they're rich in love and kindness.
Well, the Malfoys,
Yeah.
well, they're a different story.
And another interesting detail is that the Weasleys don't have a house elf.
Oh, that's true. I never thought about that.
It's a subtle way of showing their financial situation, but it also tells us about their values.
How so?
They believe in doing things for themselves, not relying on servitude.
It's a good point. They value hard work and fairness.
And that's something we can talk about with students too, right? Issues of class and social justice.
Definitely. It's all there on the story if you know where to look.
So let's move on to the individual characters now. We get to see the whole Weasley family in action.
It's such a fun dynamic.
Right. You've got Molly, the loving but strict mom, always trying to keep everyone in line.
She's a great character. She's tough. But, she loves her family more than anything.
And Arthur, with his endless fascination with muggles, he's just so curious about the world.
He is. It's endearing.
He's a great example of how we should always be open to learning new things.
And what about the twins? They bring so much humor to the story.
Oh, Fred and George are the best. They're always up to something.
They're definitely troublemakers, but in a good way.
Right. They challenge the rules, but they also have a strong sense of right and wrong.
Like you said before, they have a good moral compass.
And that's something we want to encourage in our students, right?
Yeah.
To think critically and stand up for what they believe in.
Definitely. Oh, and then there's Percy. He's kind of the odd one out, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit more serious than the others. Very ambitious and focused on rules.
And his story takes an interesting turn later on, doesn't it?
It does. He becomes very disillusioned with the Ministry of Magic.
It's like he learns the hard way that blind obedience isn't always the answer.
Exactly. It's a good reminder to always think for yourself and question authority when you need to.
Wow, this deep dive is really making me appreciate the complexity of these characters.
I know, right? And we're just getting started. There's still so much to explore.
All right, so we're wrapping up our deep dive into the burrow. And I have to say, this chapter is packed with important themes.
It really is. And there are themes that are relevant to our students' lives, too.
Yeah, for sure. Like, what are some of the big takeaways we can explore with them?
Well, rebellion is a big one.
Oh, definitely. The Weasleys don't exactly follow all the rules, do they?
Right. Like flying that enchanted car.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Weasley is always tinkering with muggle stuff.
They kind of have their own code, They do what they think is right, even if it means bending the rules a bit.
And that's a tricky thing, isn't it? Because we want our students to respect authority, but also to think for themselves.
It is. It's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
knowing when to question things and when to follow the rules.
And the Weasleys are a good example of that. Even though they break the rules, they're still good people.
Right. They have strong values like loyalty and compassion, and they're always fighting for what's right.
Which brings us to another theme, belonging.
Yeah, Harry finally finds a place where he feels accepted.
The burrow is like a safe haven for him.
Exactly. It's a place where being different is okay, where everyone's quirks are celebrated.
And that's so important for kids, to feel like they belong.
It is. And it's something we can create in our classrooms, too, a space where every student feels valued and respected.
Okay, but it's not all sunshine and roses at the Burrow, is it? There are hints of danger, too.
Right, there's that underlying darkness that we can't ignore, like Lucius Malfoy and his connection to Voldemort.
And those warnings from Dobby.
It reminds us that even in a magical world, there are serious threats.
And it sets the stage for the conflict that's to come.
Exactly. It's a reminder that good versus evil is a constant battle.
But even with that darkness, there's also hope.
Oh, definitely. Harry finds love and friendship at the Burrow.
And that gives him the strength to face the challenges ahead.
Exactly. It's a reminder that we're stronger together and that love can conquer even the darkest of times.
Okay, before we finish up, I have to bring up Gilderoy Lockhart one more time.
Oh, Lockhart. What a character.
Mrs. Weasley is totally smitten with him, right?
She is. And it's funny, but it also makes you think about celebrity culture.
It does. How we can be so easily charmed by appearances.
Right. Lockhart is all flash and no substance, but people are drawn to his fame and charisma.
And it's a good lesson for our students to be critical thinkers.
Definitely. Don't just believe something because a famous person says it.
Look beyond the surface.
Do your own research.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. This deep dive into the Burrow has been amazing.
It really has. It's shown me how much depth there is to this chapter, and how many valuable lessons we can take from it.
And hopefully it's given our fellow educators some ideas for their own classrooms.
To inspire their students to think critically, to embrace their individuality, and to find their own sense of belonging.
To always be curious, to question the world around them, and to never stop learning.
And maybe even to cause a little bit of mischief along the way.
A little bit of mischief never hurt anyone, right?
As long as it's done with a good heart.
Exactly. So, until next time, happy teaching, everyone.
Keep exploring those magical worlds.